this morning is all about film, because Ian Payne, who goes under the pseudonym of Ian on your screen, I'm going to introduce you to him shortly. He is the director of the KESWICK Film Festival, which is now in its 23rd year, which is an amazing achievement in itself, Ian. I just want to congratulate you on keeping going for 23 years. And I've got the programme in front of me. The Alhambra, I don't know if you don't know the Alhambra Cinema in KESWICK. It's the most beautiful building that has had some work done on it in recent years to really, which Ian will perhaps mention when he talks to you in a second. But going to see a film at the Alhambra in KESWICK is like going to see a film. You know, it's like how going to see a film really should be. It's the most beautiful place to watch a movie. And it's a real sort of jewel in the crown of the cinematic offer of Cumbria, I think. So we're going to hear about the KESWICK Film Festival shortly as well. And if anybody else just wants to chip in with anything going on that you want to highlight, Vega just mentioned the Tully Community Board, where they've had some applications, but I think there's still a little bit of time to spread the word about that, or if you fancy doing it yourself. So if anyone else got anything going on that they just want to mention or get support on, I'll mention a couple of things in the second half hour of this meeting as well. Then now is a good time to do it when we've got 24 people together who are all interested or take part in the cultural life of Cumbria. So that is the plan for this morning. So I'm now going to hand over the airways to Ian, and Ian, I'll get your slides up in a second. If you'd like to introduce yourself and what you do, and then the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, well, my name's Ian Payne. I've been involved with KESWICK Film Festival since about 2017. When our former director, Anne Martin, decided after 10 years of organising the festival, she would step down, I took it on. And I know Anne's worked with Chile for a sort of memorable opening event for our festival a number of years ago. Yeah, so this is us. The next festival starts on Thursday the 23rd of February and goes right through to Sunday the 26th. We've got a programme of 25 films over 3 venues, the Alhambra that you mentioned, the Theatre by the Lake, the main house there, and Reggae, where we make use of that huge screen on a Saturday. So next slide, please, Tom.
Has it moved?
It hasn't. Well,
Hang on.
I don't think we're on slideshow.
Apologies, I'm having problems with Zoom. I'm just still trying to resolve. So we'll go back to it again now. Just 2 seconds.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, the founders of KESWICK Film Club, which is our parent organisation, decided that they wanted to organise the first film festival of the new millennium, which is why the first KESWICK Film Festival took place at the Alhambra and Theatre by the Lake in the year 2000. And other than the COVID year, we've been operating ever since in various guises. I was interested to hear what you were saying earlier about the volunteers. We are entirely a voluntary run organisation. We've just converted from a charity to a CIO. And none of us are film professionals, just film lovers. So in terms of our, can we go back one?
Yeah, we can. Sorry about this, Ian. I do apologise that this is failing to share properly. Let me just try once more. Just bear with me, everybody. Can someone tell me if you can see anything?
Yeah, that's...
Is that the right one, Ian, or do you want me to go back?
Yeah, just if you can go back one, that's the one.
Okay, all
Yes,
yours.
you can. This is just sort of some of the iterations of our brand. You can see the first tentative one in the top corner, and then as we move through the years, the branding has got a little more specific and constant. The design was originally undertaken by a student in Carlisle called Ollie Bentley. It was part of a competition run by our former director, Anne Martin. When Ollie graduated and set up his own design practice in Leeds, we were his first client. So we are still his oldest client, and he does this wonderful graphic work for us every year. I think presumably Tom will have emailed around our flyer, which he's done this year. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Oop, I think, have we missed one? Well,
Is that the right one, Ian?
no, it's the one with the film posters on, if possible.
That one.
That one, there we go. This is a taste of our program this year. The program's largely put together by a chap called David Miller, who's programmed all the festivals since 2000. He's something of a genius to spot films that are coming out, but we also take notice of what's doing well at film festivals around the world, London, Venice, and particularly Toronto. The timing of that works quite nicely for KESWICK, and for a number of years we managed to screen the Audience Award from Toronto, which has been extremely popular. 3 Billboards, Parasite, Green Book, for example. So programming is, we're largely in the gift of the distributors as to what we can screen and sometimes when. You'll see the film there, Godland. It's a Danish Icelandic film which hasn't yet been released, and the distribution company said that we can screen it, but only on Thursday the 23rd for various other reasons. So that's our opening film, which it's a cinematic masterpiece, but it's considerably less jolly than our usual opening film. And then as we move across there, we've got Lunana, which is the first film from Bhutan to be entered from the Oscars. It's a glorious, glorious tale. Then we have, what have we got there? EO is a fable which we're screening about a donkey's life, which we're screening. We have The Blue Caftan, which is one of a sort of 3 LGBTQ plus films that we're screening. So we've got films from around the world, and yeah, catering for a range of potential audiences. It's not particularly straightforward. We had you may have heard of a film called Corsage, which we had programmed for the festival, but the distributors wouldn't let it. They wouldn't let us screen it, so we had to find a last-minute swap for that. There was a film called Close, which is a Belgian film, which has been shortlisted for the Best Foreign Language Oscar, and again the distributor just wouldn't let us have the film. Presumably we're too small a festival to allow it. So but nonetheless, we've got an amazing program of 25 films, which you can see from the website and the flyer. So we can move to the next screen, please. Oop, I think we want the one with, there we go. What we try and do each year is to have at least one guest, generally a director who can come along and talk about the film. It takes the festival one step beyond just going to watch a film. Once you get a chance to have a Q&A with the director to find out what made him tick and what sort of went on behind the scenes. So this year we have two guests, one Hassan Nazair, who's an Iranian expat who's directed a film called Winners, which is set back in Iran, but it was the UK's official entry for the Oscars. And sort of Iranian comedy is not a genre that we've tried before at KESWICK Film Festival, but it looks to be a superb film. And then Sarah Beddington. Each year we do a screening in partnership with KESWICK Peace and Human Rights Group. And their choice this year is Fadia's Tree. And Sarah Beddington, the director, is coming to introduce her film and do a Q&A about that afterwards. And from her biog, Sarah's currently working on a film about upland farmers in Cumbria. So we want to secure that for a future festival if we possibly can. And then the next screen. A key part of the film festival are the Osprey Short Film Awards. Again, we run that every year. We're looking for short films around or under 10 minutes in duration, but must have a Cumbrian connection, whether the filmmaker is Cumbrian or whether that it's set in Cumbria. They say it can be fairly tenuous, but there does need to be some kind of Cumbrian connection. We screen those films last year and this year. They'll be on the screen at the Theatre by the Lake main house, and it's a real opportunity for the filmmakers to see their work on the big screen, see the work of their contemporaries. It's particularly good for young filmmakers, and Signal Arts from Barrow, for example, are regular competitors in the film awards. And what we try and do there, we get our guest directors to come and present the awards, which they are generally pleased to do because they were young filmmakers once. And one of my all-time favorite memories is when Sir John Hurt was our patron for a number of years before his sad demise, and he presented the awards on 2 or 3 occasions. And the look on this young girl's face as she was holding her certificate, and she was looking at me as I was taking a picture and saying, "That's John Hurt, that's John Hurt." And it was absolutely, absolutely joyous. So let's move on to the next slide. This is some information about the festival and our audience. Just to say that the festival is largely funded through ticket income. You will know better than I do that the days of grants are long gone. We get the occasional £500, £750 and the like, but our income is largely through ticket income, so therefore we rely on getting the audience through the door. I think in the good years it costs us about 18,000 to put the film festival on, which is premises hire, film hire, and the publicity, the graphics work that you've seen examples of. So as we are dependent on our audience to survive, we need to build that audience. The audience is incredibly loyal. You can see that 63% of our audience that responded have been many, many times before. And it tends to be that if we can get somebody there once, they will come back again. It's really like meeting a family when old faces come through the door of the Alhambra each year. But again, you'll see from the next one, we are a distinctly aging audience. So 53% nearly aged over 65, and 42% aged above between 45 and 64. We are desperate to try and engage with more with a younger audience, but as yet we haven't found what it is that will bring a younger audience to actually sit in front of a cinema screen. We do involve KESWICK School, where we speak to Carlisle College and the University of Cumbria, and they all have a sort of input to the festival in various ways, whether it's volunteering, using film posters as part of their coursework and the like, but that hasn't yet resulted in any great numbers turning up. In terms of marketing, the majority, a lot of people come from our mailing list, and without a great deal of money for advertising, we rely on press coverage, say mailing lists from the Theatre by the Lake and the Alhambra, and as I say, what press coverage we can get through regular press releases, particularly to the Cumbrian media. We try very hard on social media, but 6%, was it 14% of our audience use Twitter, 7% on Instagram, and a massive 55% don't use social media at all. So it's tricky trying to develop that new audience. I've just seen the comment, that's an interesting thought, something to work on. Yes, and for example, this time around we've got 3 films which can be sort of within the LGBTQ plus branding, Blue Jean, The Blue Caftan, and Joyland. Plus we've got the Oscar nominated documentary, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, which sort of documents the opioid crisis in America, which largely sort of came after the AIDS epidemic. And again, getting our message out to the LGBTQ plus community has proved something of a challenge. But nonetheless, we've got a fantastic festival in the offing. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to field any questions you might have. Just while Tom takes the slides off, he mentioned the Alhambra, which has been superbly remodeled, and they put the additional screen in under the balcony. But that has had the impact of actually reducing the capacity of the Alhambra to 150 seats, which isn't a problem, but sometimes on a festival opening or closing night, we are sort of shoehorning people in. which is a nice problem to have. But again, echoing Tom's comments, it is a wonderful cinema. So if you get the chance, please go along and enjoy it.
I was about to say it's a nice problem to have, Ian. Do you break even on the festival? Do you mind me asking? Or is it a bit of a lost leader for sort of, you know, the number?
The last 2 or 3 years, we've made a small surplus, which has staggered us, particularly last year. Before COVID, we were getting 3,200 individual admissions to the film program. First year back after COVID, it was closer to 1,800. So it was a big drop, but we still, by paring back our costs as much as we could, we created a small sort of triple-digit surplus, but a fully fledged festival where you're sort of bringing in directors and putting them up and the like. It was the case that the film club season subsidized the festival. Yeah.
Rob, I might come to you in a second to ask you just to explain a bit more about the link you put in there. Ian, I'll come to you in a second as well. What's your story then, Ian? Sorry, Ian Tabron, I'll come to you in a second. But Ian Payne, what's your story? Have you always been a bit of a film buff, or are you just a great organizer, or a bit of both?
Well, I spent my career in local government, so whether that makes me an organizer or not, I don't know. I think the jury's out on that one. I've always loved film and foreign film. I've never been a great fan for sort of Hollywood blockbusters and special effects and the like. It was I think it was 2007 festival. We saw a film. The first time I'd ever clapped eyes on Mads Mikkelsen and Sidsi Babett Knudsen from who was later in Borgen. And the film just blew me away and blew my wife away. And we thought, this is an organization that we would like to get involved with. So I was sort of Anne's apprentice for a number of years and then took it on. Yeah, it's a vicarious world tour that you can go on when you go and watch films.
I guess it means you get to see lots of movies, which is great. And just looking through the leaflet I've got in front of me here, you know, you've mentioned lots of them already, Ian, but you know, so you've got Sweden, Germany, Iran, Chile, Poland, Spain, France, you know, a massive selection of films, American films, one from Georgia, Bhutan, the one you've mentioned, South Korea. It's astonishing the range that you've put together. You know, and it's such a great offer for people that want to, you know, stretch their horizons as far as filmmaking is concerned. And I salute you for you and David, I think you said was the name of the person that helps program it. Rob, tell us about the link you put in chat.
Yeah, sorry. It's something I heard of a few years ago, the Paris, I think it's Paris Mobile Film Festival.
Yeah.
And it encourages people to use their mobile phone to make films, short films. I think they're about a minute long. That's one of the rules, and it attracts tens of thousands, I think now. It's just something that was an earworm, if you like. It stuck with me about the breadth of stuff that was being submitted to the festival. And I know that obviously most young people have smartphones now, have the ability to create these things, but how you curate that, how you make that fit within the festival setting, I don't know. I really don't know. But given the landscape we've got around us, you know, there's a great backdrop where films could be made just a minute long, and then you bring the young people together to actually say something about it.
It's a good thought. Yes, conceivably you could do that over the course of the festival weekend. And screen the films fairly instantaneously, but yeah, that's I shall take that away with it and claim the idea as my own.
Totally, and then you'll find Paris will get in touch with you very quickly, I'd imagine.
And it's always great when you know that you've got the data though, Ian, to work on. You've got, you know, you've done that research, you've done that survey, whatever you did last time to get that data. I mean, that's that figure of 55% people saying they don't use social media. You know, that's an eye-opener, isn't it? Ian Tabron, over to you.
Yeah, just one or two things. First, I really like the journey as shown by the second slide. I think it was your branding journey from something that does look a bit studentine to something very slick indeed. So that's good. But also the quality is tremendous. So congratulations to you and the team. It's amazing. But obviously, audience development is an issue. I'm just wondering if you've got quite a lot of extra capacity within your performances. I know it will vary according to the film, but in terms of LGBT, for example, I would have thought finding kind of networked partners well in advance to do that connection into the LGBT community is the way to go. If you've got anything thematic, you can always find institutional and other partners that can touch the parts that you can't necessarily. So that's just a thought. And I wondered about universities. You talked about being in touch with universities and colleges. If you could give them any, promotional advantage, a discount perhaps, if you've got capacity for that, maybe they should be put onto their mettle in organising, student evenings or what have you. Because I do think in terms of audience development, that age, I know it reflects the age profile of Cumbria, but it is worrisome. And finally, tourism. Surely that's worth coming to KESWICK for a weekend for people who are into films. Did Cumbria Tourism sort of support you in terms of the festival and promoting it further afield?
Certainly, our programme is on the Visit Cumbria website, and I should have said that I think about 70% of our audience is Cumbrian. We do get 30% from further afield, and that is right across the country. So you're right, it is a tourism destination. It was strange that last year, for example, that because of the after effects of COVID, we had to put the festival back a month because of the commitments of the Theatre by the Lake. And the night and the clocks had changed, and people were coming out of the cinema not having seen KESWICK in daylight before. So it is a place to come for a weekend in the lakes, but perhaps that's something to do with our programming. They barely have time to eat between films, let alone take a walk along Derwentwater.
Some good thoughts, Ian. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to chip in about the KESWICK Film Festival while we've got Ian with us? I intend I became a member of the Alhambra actually a few months ago, and have enjoyed its loveliness. I know it's not just the Alhambra, it's Reg Ed and Theatre by the Lake as well, but for me it's the Alhambra is the jewel in the crown. So I certainly intend to pick up a couple of tickets for stuff that I've probably never heard of, just to see what it's like myself. All right, well, thank you very much, Ian, for telling us all about it. I commend it to everybody. It's the weekend of the 23rd to 26th of February, and the ticket prices are pretty reasonable. And I know that I won't ask Ian to go into all the details now, but there's various deals you can get for individual tickets, festival passes, non-members, students get a cheaper price as well. And there's all sorts of offers there. So, and I think Sally's Cottages is one of your sponsors. Is that right, Ian? So let's hear it for Sally's Cottages.
Absolutely.
All right. And, you'd like to think that you said how in the old days, you used to be able to get grants or whatever for this kind of thing. And believe you me, I know how painful and time consuming it is to apply for support, for financial support. But, this is a great thing that you're doing, I'm sure for the love of it, along with the committee. So I hope that, I hope that you can continue to go. I hope it breaks even at least this year. I bet it will. And thank you for doing it on behalf of everybody who's going to enjoy it.
It's a pleasure. It really is.
All right. And Vega just mentions there, speaking of films, I'm having an exclusive screening of a short film about Chinese paper making and painting workshop at Studio Moreland on the 20th of March. I'll ask Amy to put it in the newsletter. That's like a tease. That sounds fascinating, Vega. Thank you for that. Yeah, and as Colin says there, the Knotted Project, you're probably aware of that, Ian, the Knotted Project and the Forge Project, which is part of that, are really engaged with young people in Cumbria. They do all sorts of interesting stuff. They did a fantastic dance festival at Windermere Jetty last year. So just have the Knotted Project on your piece of paper to think about perhaps for future collaborations. And we've got good connections with, is it Natalie who runs the Knotted Project? Yes, it is. So if you want to come back about that, then give it a shout. Right. Thank you, Ian. Kate, you were going to mention about some mentoring that's been going on, and I know there's one or two people here connected with that on the call, and we've had some initial conversations and some initial meetings, I think. So tell us a bit more about the network mentoring that's going on.
Yeah, so one of the things that we are funded to do by Sellafield actually is to run a mentoring program and to bring together people who have lots of experience of the sector in Cumbria with those people who are kind of emerging into it and just starting off. It's age is not a part of it, it's just where you are in your career. So we put out our first sort of request for mentees and mentors a few months ago, and we've had a really strong response to it. We're really pleased with it, and it shows a real clear need for this. And our first sort of tranche of, or cohort of mentors and mentees got cracking this week with the support of Braithey. I don't know if anybody has heard of the Changing Culture programme. That's something that was run by Theatre by the Lake and Braithey and the University of Cumbria, and it was a part of that. It was a leadership development programme. Part of it was a mentoring scheme where about a dozen people were matched with, on the whole, there were people from organisations, leaders of organisations, and they worked together for a couple of years through COVID as it happened. And that was a very successful part of the Changing Culture Arts Council funded programme. So on the back of that, we are picking up with Braithey for them to support a smaller sort of mentoring programme across Cumbria through the Arts and Culture Network. We are going to keep rolling out different cohorts as time goes on. So if you're interested, either as a mentor or a mentee, both are obviously equally important, please get in touch through the hello@CACN email address. Amy will just pop that in chat, and it'll be Amy who's on the end of that, and she will point you in the right direction. It's actually being organised by Chris Bridgman, who's our development producer, not here today, but if you're interested, do think about it. And if you work for an organisation and you have a member of staff who might be interested in either capacity, again, get in touch, because we will keep going with this. So I just want to go to two people. Julie, are you there? She keeps being there and not there, in and out. Yes, she's there, hurrah, on a different device. I'm going to go to Julie first, just in case the internet drops out again. Rob Fraser and Julie are both mentors on the programme. I'm going to ask them how it went this week, because to make the best of the opportunity, Braithey have sort of brought people together to coach people, train people a little bit in what being a mentor is all about and what being a mentee is about, just to get the most out of it. So Julie, how did you find it?
Yes, well, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely fine.
I'm on my phone. Yeah, I've been involved in 2 mentor training programs before, and I would like to say that this is the best one so far. I thought training by Braithey was excellent. I just thought they did a mix of going through the basics, which we can all do with, genning up on, but also it was very, very up to date, very pithy, and yeah, I feel very prepared to carry on during the programme. Great.
That's really good to hear, because I know I've been a mentor before and very much just thrown into it with no real advice, and just kind of used my common sense and what I've experienced as a mentee before, so I'm really glad to hear that it was useful. How about you, Rob? How was it for you?
Yeah, it was great. It was really well run, as Julie said. It was 2 hour sessions, one on Monday evening, one on Wednesday evening. There's 6 mentors and 6 mentees. And this is basically just the start of the process. So we've laid out the ground rules, and it's up to us and our mentee to now sort of outline what we'd like to achieve. It's quite light touch. There is a semi-structured or loose commitment to 1 hour per month online, and 1 hour per month if you can face to face, if that works. But of course that might not work. It depends on people's circumstances. So that's the kind of the loose what you're looking at, and it's going to be running for the 6 months going forwards. Really, really good. Kath Hempsel was the trainer on this, and she was brilliant, by the way. She just smiled, she just made it fairly informal, but with a very structured program to actually, because I've never mentored before. I didn't really know. I knew basically what a mentor might be, but having that framework to work with, I think, was invaluable. And of course, like anything, you can take those loose tools and then fit them to the circumstances as you go forward with your mentee. It's a kind of a twin dance, if you like, between the two of us now going forward to see what works. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a two-way learning. I don't think it would just be going one way, that's for sure. There's that whole feeling. It cropped up in the room early on with the mentors talking about imposter syndrome, about what have I got to give. Of course, if you're still in the game now and you've been going a few years, then you've obviously got some resilience to you. So you've got some tools in the box. I think that's valuable.
Yeah. That's really helpful. I'm also pleased to hear that you found it useful, and I know what you mean. You do learn as a mentor. In fact, the person that I mentored, I had to really work very hard to keep up with her. She was extremely bright, and I had to be sort of on my mettle to do a decent job. I hope you both get lots out of it, and I repeat that if there's anybody here who would like to be a mentor, please get in touch. And that whole idea of imposter syndrome, drop it, because everybody here on this screen has got something to bring to the party. So please.
We're all imposters. Kate, tell us about the Braithwaite Trust. What's the Braithwaite Trust?
Braithwaite Trust is an organisation, they call themselves Braithwaite these days in a very pithy way, based by Windermere at Ambleside, and they work with young people. They create opportunities, development opportunities for young people, and it's all kinds of things, whether that is kind of taking young people out on a paddleboard across the lake, or this kind of leadership development opportunities. But they do a whole range of things, and I see Amy's put the link in chat if you want to know a little bit more about them. But they were one of the lead partners on the Changing Culture programme, and we had our January face-to-face quarterly meeting there in 2022, and they made us very welcome by the lake. It's a really beautiful spot to go. Okay, so that's enough. Thank you very much indeed to Julie and Rob, and thank you for stepping forward to be part of the first cohort. It's really promising, and we're very pleased. Okay, back to you, Tom.
Thanks, Kate. And just to look ahead to March the 3rd, I know I mentioned this last week as well. So it's the next face-to-face quarterly meeting of the network. It's going to be at Sunbeams, Annie's lovely building just next to Reg Ed. I think 18 people have booked on so far. So if you'd like to come to that, we're going to have 1 or 2 people from the Arts Council there. We're going to have a couple of presentations, a chance to talk and network, actually meet each other face to face, a lovely chance to look around Sunbeams as well, and the beautiful building and facility that Sunbeams is, and a chance to gossip and network as well. So that's on March the 3rd. That's all free. There's going to be a lunch thrown in as well. We'll get everybody there for 9:30. We'll start at 10. We'll go through to about 2 o'clock. And there's help to get there transport wise if that's something that you need some support with. So the link for booking onto that, Amy, she's so good, isn't she, Amy? She's put yet another link into chat. But the most important thing is to stick it in your diary, March the 3rd. And we're going to focus on dynamism. which is one of the 4 Arts Council principles, investment principles. So if you're involved in any organisation or any project that is bidding for Arts Council money, you obviously need to be aware of the 4 investment principles that they have got for Let's Create, their 10-year strategy. And one of them is about dynamism, which is basically how do you cope with changing circumstances? How do you cope? So, for example, we're going to focus on the cost of living crisis in particular. You know, what are the challenges facing the arts and culture sector right now, as the cost of living crisis is around us all? That's a good example of how dynamism comes into play. So that's the sort of focus of the discussion that we'll have. So it should be interesting. And as Kate says, though, don't worry, you don't have to be dynamic, but we will focus on dynamism, and a good chance to come along and explore the issues in a supportive environment. So that's March the 3rd in the morning at Sunbeams. I was also just going to mention a couple of things that have come up this week at the LEPS Culture Panel, which Colin Glover is chair of. Colin, what's the actual title of the group that you chair?
It's the Creative and Cultural Sector Panel.
The Creative and Cultural Sector Panel.
We are sort of the eyes and ears of the main board on the culture sector.
Okay, and this is part of the LEP, the Local Enterprise Partnership. And Colin, are you able to sort of, in a pithy way, say what is the LEP for those that aren't so familiar with it?
Yeah, Local Enterprise Partnership, they exist all over the UK. We have one that covers the whole of Cumbria, and their main role in life is to drive economic growth. They look at a wide range of different areas, and particularly engage with employers and businesses to try to meet some of those challenges, whether it is training, whether it's workforce. And of course, we constantly push that the cultural sector is an important part of the Cumbrian economy.
So ultimately, you know, there's a bit of clout that the LEP has to make things happen across the county. And there's two, I think it's fair to say at the moment, the cultural panel is grappling with what should be the priorities of direction of travel for what we should be focusing on. And two that came up, there's sort of 5 themes ranging from should Cumbria bid for the City of Culture in, 2029 to should we be getting more involved with social prescribing across the county, of which there was bits happening all over the place, but should there be a bit more of a strategic push to make social prescribing and the arts and cultural sector fit together better? But the two that I just wanted to float, as a start of initial conversation, they've asked me to ask you, in other words, ask the network. One of the thoughts is something about a joint ticketing or marketing strategy, which probably has been tried in the past in many ways with different organisations. But would there be any appetite amongst people involved in the arts and cultural sector in Cumbria for some kind of joint ticketing or marketing push for the county? Discuss. And the second one was something about a shared back office function for people who are freelance creatives. So, if you're a freelance creative, you've got your tax return to do, you've got various things to worry about. You've only got so many hours in the day, and some of these things don't always pay money. So would there be, if somehow there was some kind of joined up back office need or function for people who are working very much in a freelance capacity, would that be something that could be useful, that would be useful? Is that some sort of path that should be researched a bit more by the culture sector panel? So those are just 2 ideas that are being floated around at the moment and being discussed: a joint ticketing or marketing push, and some sort of shared back office offer that the LEP could somehow coordinate or get off the ground initially. Have I captured that all right, Colin, as two of the ideas?
Yes, absolutely spot on.
I mean, does anybody have any thoughts, feelings, reflections? Lorna, yes to any kind of admin help. Lorna's unable to speak, so she's put that into chat. That's good to know. Any other reflections, thoughts about, would either of those two be of use to the cultural sector panel, to the cultural sector in the county?
Tom, I think that marketing help would be really, really useful, because even an organisation like ourselves, we don't have a huge amount of time for marketing, and it's so important. What was discussed earlier about the film festival, it's trying to reach different audiences, and if you don't have the capacity to that, then I imagine the marketing would be really useful to a lot of people and organisations as well.
Yeah. And we just have to pinpoint exactly what that would be and how it would work and actually be practical and useful. Ian, Tabron.
Yeah, apologies if I sound really, really old here, but for 40 years, I've been seeing these things put forward at the Arts Council for places like Liverpool, Manchester, just having joint marketing and ticketing there, and they've been resisted furiously for reasons I really won't bore you with. But I do think I am positive about support for the independence in some way. In terms of that capacity, they just don't have the capacity on things like marketing to compete with the NPOs, for example. So something, if it could be pinned down to help with that, like an alternative arts offer, perhaps, would be great. But the ticketing thing, I'm less sanguine about. I think you have a real difficulty getting the people that actually sell a lot of tickets, like Theatre by the Lake, to join in with that, because historically they like to keep their own marketing and their own data close to themselves. I'm not having to go at Theatre by the Lake, I'm just saying what has been my experience over 40 years. And I'm not entirely sure that is better than what CACN has got to offer, which is development for the sector in terms of, you know, teaching people to fish rather than giving them fish, teaching them the skills that they need to, you know, to sustain careers through really difficult times. So apologies if that sounds a bit negative, but I have heard both of those ideas many, 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 many times before. Not to say it won't work, just to say it's been around a lot.
Yeah, no, I think the whole teaching them people to fish rather than giving them the fish themselves is absolutely where the core of some of the stuff that we try and do with this network is about. We did some training, come to you in a sec, George. We did some training about a year ago about how to write press releases better, how to write copy for websites, how to write pithily and perhaps energetically for social media. I think we could come back to that kind of stuff. That would be something that we could return to regularly. And there might well be expertise, you know, in the network that we could use to do that as well. Thank you, Lorna. I'd like someone else to do the fishing for me. George at Higham Hall, who runs Higham Hall.
Hi, yeah, I totally agree with what's been said. I mean, here we come across so many freelance creatives who are, you know, trying to plough their own field, you know, away from us as well. And one of the things that comes up quite often is very often that they're so busy getting on with being creative and doing what they do and keeping a roof over their heads, the back office stuff does actually tend to take second place, and consequently they sometimes some of people who maybe don't stay up with it, or you know, they end up sort of not, you know, putting their invoices in quick enough and things like that, and so they're losing out on you know, getting money in quickly. And as I'm sure most people know, cash flow is the biggest problem for a lot of independent people trying to keep their head above water. So I'd certainly see, you know, from my perspective, seeing, you know, some sort of back office help for freelancers would be, I'm sure, would be most welcome from LEP, you know, something like that. I think that would be a very, very good move.
And specifically, George, just to put the spotlight on you, what specifically would be helpful? What sort of things?
Well, I mean, I think some of the simple things like helping with financial things like, you know, invoicing, and then when it comes to the dreadful, you know, that awful time of the year where you have to make sure you know enough and you're up with it to put your tax return in, if that's relevant. That is one of the things that I think I've seen a lot of over the years. A lot of creative people struggle with that, because that's you know, finances aren't their main priority. That they're you know, they're wanting to, you know, do what they do best and provide and be a provider of either learning or their own skill, etc. So very often we find that the creative side of tutors, lots of them often do struggle a little bit with their invoicing and getting, you know, money in, and actually they could do things a lot more efficiently if they had that support.
Yeah, thank you, George. Rob.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the beginning of Colin's bit. I had to go and answer the door, but something that occurred to me, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but personal coaching for people can be quite good. Without mentioning any names, Kate Brundritt does that and has been doing it successfully on a one-to-one basis with a few artists I know, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You know, you're spinning many plates as a freelance creative, and I think having that ability to perhaps have somebody do some active listening to what you're talking about, and then maybe help you see a way out of some of the issues. Because if you're kind of buried under the morass of everything, it can be hard sometimes to pick your way through things to get back to the surface again, to actually what you do, you know, what you love doing. We all, as creatives, we all love being creative, but there's so much other stuff that comes with that as an individual practitioner. So, you know, just sometimes some small tools to help your own self-health can maybe just help you a little bit more.
Yeah, Kate.
And I think that's a really good idea, Rob. And I just wonder whether the network could actually provide some bursaries for people to be able to go to people like Kate and have a number of sessions, or, you know, a period of time with her. That's something I'm going to put my mind to. Ian, Tabron, we can think about that.
And thank you, Vega, for your good comment. I think CACN does a sterling job as a locus focus for support and training. I think just carry on. It's a good centralised place for expertise and advice. That's good to hear. We get a bit of funding from the County Council. Hopefully that will continue through the Cumberland and Westmoreland councils come April. And we managed to cut a deal with the Sellafield Social Impact Fund to get £75,000 for 3 years. We're into year 2 of that now. But that was quite hard fought to get that money, because often organisations don't want to support sort of infrastructure. They want to support projects. They want to support stuff that makes things happen. So we've had to work pretty hard, and a lot of people should take a lot of credit for doing that to get us into the situation whereby we can, for example, you know, the mentoring program that's going on at the moment, you know, there's some money involved in that. It's not just done through voluntary effort and goodwill, although that all is part of it too. There's actually some financial recompense, and when we get someone to do some training, we did some freelance training recently. She was paid obviously to do that, because that's her job, is to help people become better as freelancers. So this stuff costs money, quite rightly, but we've got to get it before we can do things. But I think what we've got going with the network, my sense, this is my harp end of this, we've got a good bit of momentum. We've got some good social media platforms. We've got a good website, and we've got these Friday calls, so we can keep doing stuff. But I just thought, you know, hopefully, Colin, there's been some interesting stuff mentioned there that when we next gather about with the panel, we can reflect some of those shared thoughts. Do you want to just say anything, Colin?
Yeah, that's very useful. And if anybody does have any thoughts after this, and you know, over the weekend you suddenly think of something that would either help others or that you feel is needed, then please do let us know, so that we can feed it in. Because what we don't want to do is duplicate what is happening elsewhere. We want to work in partnership and make sure that we can actually support people.
We're just coming towards the end of the call, but Jane's got a hand up. So Jane.
So I was just going to say, so I am a freelancer. One of the things I find really useful is the message boards, where you can just post a question and get a really quick answer. But the ones that are quite specific. So if it was a Cumbria based one, so CACN, you know, sort of maybe hosting that, but it's the speed of response, because often as a freelancer, it's that panic and you need to know, you know, before the next Friday session or something. But that pooling of knowledge and really quick turnaround I found really useful.
That's great to know. Thank you, Jane. Thank you. All right. It's 10:28. Next week, we're going to hear from the Lancaster Literary Festival, which we've not heard from before. Natalie, who does the marketing there, they're getting ready for their festival. I think it's in March. So we're going to hear what's going on there and what their plans are. And also the Cumbrian Opera Group, Joe Davis, I think his name is. We've heard from Joe before, but they've just launched a young composer's new composition competition. That's quite difficult to say. But in essence, young people are invited to write some music which they will then support, and someone will get a chance to write a bigger piece of music and perform it here in Cumbria. So we're going to hear from Joe about where that's come from and what the plan is as far as that is concerned as well. Andrew's put in there, Full of Noises had its first live events at half term in our new space in Barrow Park. There's a nice link there. So do enjoy that as well. But I think we'll call it a halt for today. Thank you very much. Ian, I know, has had to disappear because he's had to travel down south, Ian Payne. So thank you to him, though, for telling us about the KESWICK Film Festival, which I can't recommend highly enough. And thank you to those who are involved in the mentoring. And thank you to you for coming along this morning. Look forward to catching you again soon. Have a nice weekend.